and that is our executives' war-making authority and how they have abused that and taken it from the Congress and now are ready to use it against us. Thomas Paine is commonly quoted as saying, "It is the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government." Fellow patriots, you are under attack. In 2001, Congress declared that the whole world, including the United States, is a war zone, subject to the law of war. In the 2009 Mayak report, constitutionalists and those who dare to say that our government is trying to disarm us and subjugate us have been labeled dangerous extremists and enemies of the state. President Obama has expanded on the Bush administration's assertion that by executive order alone, American citizens may be imprisoned and assassinated without a trial. Now, Colorado's elected officials have passed clearly unconstitutional, illegal laws attempting to limit what arms we free men can own. Thomas Jefferson said it is our duty to disobey unjust laws, and that no free man will ever be debarred the use of arms. Do you consent to being disarmed? No! Today we protest our public servants' attempts at gradual, incremental disarmament. This is our line in the sand. The regime is imposing gradual disarmament of us, law-abiding, tax-paying Americans. At the same time, they continue to supply F-16 fighter jets, tanks, and over $1.5 billion in aid to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood states their mission is to use Sharia law to destroy America, Western civilization, and the enemies of Islam. They recently publicly beheaded an ex-member for the crime of boldly converting to Christianity. Arms and money have been sent to Al-Qaeda in Libya and in Syria. Our leaders in Washington continue to make multi-billion-dollar arms deals with the violent, crushing dictatorships throughout the Middle East in places such as Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. While our leaders spend our hard-earned money propping up violent dictators in the Middle East, they label those of us who wish to restrain the governments to its proper legal scope as domestic terrorists. Why are our borders wide open to infiltration? Why are our most sensitive nuclear sites and Mexican border so poorly guarded? With the most powerful military the world has ever known, why can't we secure our continent and protect our borders? Because we are too lazy, because we are too busy trying to secure the entire globe for our imperial masters and their corporate special interests. Will we face the bankrupted fate of all other empires that have attempted world domination, such as the Roman Empire? We are well on our way. The U.S. military takes over entire countries rather than arresting and bringing its wicked leadership to trial or killing them during apprehension. It is the evil leaders who are responsible, not the hundreds of thousands and even millions of civilians murdered through our militarism. The way we treat our active duty servicemen and veterans is disgusting. While our troops suffer in the deserts of far-off lands, President Obama has canceled White House tours and funding for Independence Day while planning a $100 million vacation to Africa. Medical care for our veterans goes unfunded. Proper supplies for our active duty soldiers are ignored. Our veterans continue to kill themselves at a rate of 22 soldiers per day, or approximately 1 per hour. On June 10th, Daniel Summers became another armed forces suicide victim. In what he initially believed would be defense of his country, he ran over 400 combat missions as a machine gunner in a turret in a Humvee in Iraq. Daniel's suicide note speaks of everything wrong with what American foreign policy has become. I'm going to quote from his suicide note here for a minute. During my first employment, I was made to participate in things, the enormity of which is hard to describe. War crimes, crimes against humanity. Though I did not participate willingly and made what I thought was my best effort to stop these events, there are some things that a person simply cannot come back from. These things go far beyond what most are even aware of. To force me to do these things and then to participate in the ensuing cover-up is more than any government has the right to demand. Then, the same government has turned around and abandoned me. Is it any wonder that the latest figures show 22 veterans killing themselves each day? That is more veterans than children killed at Sandy Hook every single day. Where are the huge policy initiatives? Why isn't the president standing with those families at the State of the Union address? Perhaps because we were not killed by a single lunatic, but rather by his own system of dehumanization, neglect, and indifference. The fact is that any kind of ordinary life is an insult to those who died at my hand. How can I possibly go around like everyone else while the widows and orphans I created continue to struggle? Thus I am left with basically nothing, too trapped in a war to be at peace, too damaged to be at war. This is what brought me to my actual final mission, not suicide, but a mercy killing. The blood of these soldiers is not only on the hands of our leaders, but partly on our hands as well. We consent with our silence and continue to allow trillions of our dollars, our tax dollars, to fund wars for a parasitic, deceptive, and imperialistic regime. After 12 years and trillions of dollars, we are still spending billions in Iraq. Over 20,000 heavily armed State Department contractors remain there, which do not officially count as troops. The Taliban is resurging in Afghanistan, and there is no end in sight. Just yesterday, in a military coup d'etat, Obama's supported Muslim Brotherhood was ousted, and the Egyptian constitution was suspended. For our war efforts, we have spent trillions of dollars, borrowed from the communist regime in China and from foreign-owned banks, sending our children and future generations into debt slavery to these countries and to these private banking interests. We have sacrificed the lives of thousands of American soldiers and by many accounts murdered over 1 million Iraqi civilians. What do we have to show for it? Are any of these countries we have invaded more stable or stronger economically? In many cases, we are more hated, we are more bankrupt, and they are more fragmented than before our intervention. It's time for Congress to follow the Constitution instead of turning their back on the American public. Will we tolerate a regime puppet like Barack Hussein Obama arming and funding our enemies? Or will we demand that Congress obeys the law and uses our military for defense of our nation rather than for the rest of the globe? The choice is clear. It is time to return to foreign policy of self-defense and realize the dire consequences of U.S. imperialism. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff is referencing, when it came to us arming our enemies, he's referencing our arming of Al-Qaeda in Syria. These people are open, they're public about their affiliation and their loyalty to Al-Qaeda. And these are people we're sending hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, arms, and we are trying to buoy them as the next puppet of Syria. Similarly, of what we've seen just now in Egypt, they will be toppled as well. And all we're creating is a continuous cycle of turmoil, of continued violence. And not only that, we are leaving our own country wide open and undefended. And how many thousands more of our good servicemen are we willing to lose before we wake up and realize we need to defend our country and leave the world to its own devices? And we can do it. Our next speaker is Jared Wright. He's a fantastic patriot. He has introduced legislation in the Colorado legislature which nullified the National Defense Authorization Act, Section 1021 and 1022, which usurps our right to due process, and it declares the entirety of this country a battlefield. I don't believe we're in a battlefield. I believe we are in a civil and peaceful society. Thank you very much for your patriotic actions, Jared, and we look forward to all of your hard work and good legislation in the future.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Independence Day, first off. You know, thank you for the cheers. We don't hear enough of those in America on Independence Day anymore. I just wanted to, my iPhone just survived its 300th drop, so I want to start off with telling you a little disclaimer. I'm a little bit tired today. I woke up about 4 o'clock this morning to what I thought at first were gunshots outside my window. Turned out it was my next-door neighbor's kids that were so eager to celebrate Independence Day with fireworks, they decided to set them off at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, I felt safe, knowing that they were thinking that they were gunshots to begin with my stack of 30-round magazines sitting next to me, which are now illegal. So, not for long, and I hope that none of you actually comply with that in private. So, I wanted to just start off with that disclaimer because I might be a little bit grumpy, but you know what? I wake up pretty much every morning angry as hell, like many of you probably do, and I have for the last several years, because I see what's happening to America. Now, I appreciate everything that the Mesa County Patriots do. You guys have done a fantastic job putting this event together. Walking up these steps and having to pass by the entirety of our U.S. Constitution in writing tells me I'm in the right place. So since I'm a little bit grumpy, a little bit more grumpy than usual today, all of you liberals that might be planted out there in the audience, the few of you that are out there, you may as well turn on your NSA-approved recording devices right now because I might say some interesting things. And I see some of my campaign volunteers looking at me nervously down there. But you know what? It's time that we say what needs to be said, isn't it? Yeah. It's time that a politician stands up and is not worried about the next poll when he wakes up the next morning because he spoke the truth. You know what? Frankly, I don't care if I'm reelected because I'm going to do the right thing and continue to have a target on my back for doing it, and I'm proud to do it. I'm proud to be on the NSA's most wanted list. And I know you've got my back. I know you've got my back. Now, I was asked today to talk about the Federal Reserve and the unconstitutionality of our current currency system and all the economic problems that each one of us is suffering right now due to the fact that we have rich corporocrats and bureaucrats who are continuing to pad their pockets on our backs as taxpayers. I'm tired of it, folks, and it's time that we put a stop to it, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why it's happening. Now, some of the liberals out there and some of my enemies, you know who you are, bless your hearts, have said, well, we don't want Jared Wright to talk about money. He doesn't have a right to talk about anything money related because he's had some financial problems in his past. Well, yeah, I have. Who here in the audience hasn't? Who here is independently wealthy like these corporocrats on Wall Street that continue to pad their pockets on our back? I don't see any hands going up. How many of you think that we're doing well here in the United States economically? I don't see any hands going up. And yet we're told on a daily basis, oh, the economy's improving because they play with the numbers.
What country?
In what country? Exactly. Not in America. And folks, here's why. The Federal Reserve Bank, as many of you may know, was established in 1913, unconstitutionally established, because nowhere in the Constitution does it say that Congress has the ability to establish a banking system that is truly private. It's not even regulated truly by Congress. Now, we've seen Dr. Ron Paul do a great job of trying to draw out information and trying to audit the Fed to see what they're truly doing to this country, and he's gotten places with it. And we owe him a huge debt of gratitude for doing it. But there's still a bunch to come out. Now, to give you an idea, the Fed was established in 1913, and I brought some facts that I know you're going to find interesting up here. When the Fed was established, since that time in 1913, your $20 bill today in 2013 would require you to spend $470.60. Your $20 bill would buy you the equivalent of something that would cost $470.60 today. That's called inflation. That inflation rate is 2,253%, friends. And we have a Federal Reserve, Mr. Bernanke, telling us, oh, we don't have an inflation problem. Now, in 2008, he came out and said, inflation, in fact, is a tax. He admitted it to Ron Paul that inflation is a tax. And folks, what better way than a pseudo-government agency to tax all of us without even having to go before a panel of Congress to get that tax passed. That's what they're doing. They're taxing us without calling it a tax. The middle class in this country is continuing to diminish. Most Americans who are in the middle class say that they're on the bottom, struggling just to stay in what they deem the middle class. Just in the last 3 years, since 2010, 55% of Americans said that they deemed that they were in the middle class. Today, in 2013, only 49% say that they think they're in the middle class. You have 1%, the top 1% in society, when it comes to their wealth, worth more than the bottom 90% of us. Do you see a problem here? Yep. Now, I believe in America, and I believe in capitalism, and I believe in our ability to gain wealth. But right now, they're messing with the system. So the rich get richer, and the rest of us get poorer. And it needs to stop. I'm tired of it. I'm angry over it, and it needs to stop. And you can print those words down at the Grand Junction Daily Sentinel, bless your hearts, you know who you are, with the rest of you who are down there, mostly Democrats, who I believe have meeting rooms in their basement. At least that's my theory. You know, I'm going to keep talking about what needs to be talked about. I'm going to do more than talk, because I think most of you are tired of the political talk with no walk. I believe I proved last year, thank you, I hope I proved to you last year with my willingness to run the NDAA nullification, that I'm willing to step up and run the hard legislation. I'm going to run it again this year. Yeah. On top of that, my first pre-file bill this year is to ban the use of drones in their entirety in the state of Colorado unless you get a search warrant. Woo! Common sense, isn't it? But we continue to have these bureaucrats and corporocrats call us a bunch of nut jobs. Oh, you guys don't understand how this works. We do. We want to lecture you on how America works. We want to change your mind on how America works, because we know better than you do. But the common sense that lives in each one of us, the true patriots that are left in this country, will prevail. And I want to tell you something. Let's use the terms of the liberals who want to take down America to our advantage. How about let's quote Malcolm X, certainly a liberal icon. And he did certainly good things for liberty in America, but, you know, he's touted as their hero. What did he say? He said, nobody, and I quote, nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, and today if you're a woman, you take it. And we will take our liberty back in this country, starting right now, starting on the steps of this courthouse, on the steps of that city hall, all the way up to the state capitol, and up to the steps of our United States Congress and the White House. We're starting today. We're going to take back America and America's brand of liberty that made us all great. And when I say I'm going to start, I'm going to start. We're going to do NDAA again. We're going to ban the use of drones in the state of Colorado. We're going to try as hard as we can. And you know what? I'm going to walk the talk, folks. I just talked about the Fed and the problems with our currency. And I could go on and on. Your eyes would glaze over if we did. But we know there's a problem and it needs to be fixed. I'm going to run a bill called constitutional currency in the state of Colorado that sets Colorado. This is making me nervous. I survived that one. Thank you, David. That sets Colorado apart from the rest of this country and makes us sustainable economically, that puts the middle class back in charge of this currency and our country. God bless America. Happy Independence Day. Let's go out there. Let's win our independence back.
We need to be so thankful for Jared Wright. He is walking the walk, he's talking the talk, and we need to support a man like that because they're few and far between. So far, we've listened to Kevin McCarney tell us that we are still under the tyranny of an graduated income tax. Why did the founders deny such a thing specifically in our original Constitution? Because it is 100% geared towards